right, good morning, everyone. Happy April 1st, April Fool's Day. It's not a joke. It is bright and early, 7:15 here in the morning for our next Learn a Latte event. Learn a Latte is a student services series where we talk about different topics related to your student's life at Hersey or life after Hersey, hence the spelling of the word latte. And because it's bright and early, some of you may need something similar to get going. But I really appreciate you coming bright and early this morning, or if this recording works, watching it later. So today's topic is direct admissions. And so kind of you see here the tagline, imagine a world where you don't apply to college, colleges apply to you. Sounds pretty crazy, right? All you might have heard is, wow, it's like so complicated to apply to schools, find schools, and then you finally figure out a school, and the application has so many parts. It has essays, 2, 3, 4, transcripts, extracurriculars, all these components to it. And so you're telling me that there's this way where the colleges apply to you. Is this a joke? Well, let's talk about it and kind of see where we're at. So a couple things that are similar. When I was mentioning this to some others, they gave me a definition of something similar but different. So this is where I want to kind of get those out of the way first. So the first is, you might have heard of something called early decision. Early decision is a way to apply to college that not all colleges have. And this is where a student, after doing their research, they find a school that is their number one choice. They want to go there no matter what. They've gone through those 5 Ps. They know it's the perfect fit. They visited, they've checked the finances, and they basically say, if you admit me, I promise to come. And I promise so much that I'm going to sign a bunch of things, and my parents going to sign, and my counselor's going to sign, and they're committed to go there. And so you can only do this to one school. So this was partly a question that somebody asked, can you do direct admissions to only one school? This is not the same thing. We'll talk about in a minute, but early decision might be what they were thinking of. And so you can only do early decision to one school. Okay, so this again would be where a student does their research, reaches out, finds a school, and that school has to have early decision as a way to apply. Not all schools have that, okay? So early decision is a student choice driven by their research. Okay, something else that you might have heard of that is really more similar, this is where it gets confusing with all these lingos, especially with the word direct, is direct admit or direct entry. This usually refers to a major or a program that a student is admitted to, directly upon their acceptance to the university, directly when they're admitted to the university as a whole, right? So nursing is a popular one. Nursing, if you're directly admitted into a school's nursing program, that means when you get there as a freshman, you're already in that major. You can start taking those classes. You don't have to, worry if you're going to have a spot for you or not. You are in. Versus some schools where you might have to do pre-nursing, you have to go to the college first. You take some prerequisites, you meet a certain requirement, you fill out another application while you're at the school, and then you hope you get into the nursing program. So direct entry typically refers to those programs. So this is again where the student initiates this. They are looking for schools, or they are looking at particular programs. And again, if they get into a direct nursing or direct business or direct engineering major or program, then it's not binding unless they applied early decision to the school overall. It's just, a way where it's a little less risky if they're not sure. Every year, especially at University of Illinois, Urbana, students have to pick a first choice major, and then sometimes they usually elect to do a backup major. And so if they get into the backup major, the question is, well, what do I do? Am I going to get into this major later? And the chances, depending on the major, are greater or less. And so, again, direct admit or direct entry is a way that kind of reduce the risk if a student really knows they want to pursue a certain major. That is not direct admissions either. So just hopefully that's clear. The chat or Q&A, I believe, hopefully should be open. If you do have questions, please send those in. All right, so what is this direct admission? That sounds maybe too good to be true. It is essentially a process where the colleges proactively offer admission to students rather than waiting for the students to apply. Okay, so definitely, the opposite of how the college process has pretty much, always worked. Um, and this is usually based on some very basic pre-existing data, your transcripts, your GPA, or possibly a student's test score. That's all they're looking at. It's not the full holistic review. It's not, you know, uh, analyzing essays or course rigor or letters of rec or any of that. Transcripts, GPA, possibly test score, as we'll talk about in a minute with Illinois, just the fact that you live in Illinois, and that's pretty much it. So why would colleges do such a thing? It sounds kind of crazy, right? So these are just a few reasons that a college might participate in direct admissions. It could be a state university system that's possibly facing declining enrollment, especially in rural and underserved areas. So when you see the list in a minute of public schools in Illinois that participate, you'll see that it's more of our rural ones for sure, or smaller ones, not the flagship schools, not some of those popular ones that we'll mention in a minute. And so it's maybe a great way for a student who wasn't thinking about that campus. All of a sudden, it's on their radar. They could want to increase access to higher education for qualified students who might not traditionally apply. Sometimes students, kind of the next bullet, who they might feel intimidated by this process. They might feel like, I just don't think I can get into a four-year school, or boy, like these applications, like I said, involve so many essays and so many letters of rec and all this stuff. It's too overwhelming. But there would be a great college student. And so these schools, might be, again, reaching out to them and be like, hey, you can be a great college student. You could be, somebody who would be successful here. Let's kind of reduce those barriers, right? And so again, it streamlines this process. And it reduces a lot of stress and definitely the uncertainty, right? If you know any seniors or have seniors, some of them are still waiting to hear if they got into schools or not. They've been deferred, or they're on and so this allows them to know right away, pretty much if they're in or not. And so it's a great way to reduce some of that stress when we talk about having safety schools or likely schools. This is a way to do that. So how does it work? Okay. Colleges are going to identify students who meet their predetermined criteria, like I said, GPA or test score, or something like that. This is not always shared, though, right? So you don't necessarily know. I mean, some of them might share it flat out on their website, but sometimes you don't exactly know what they're looking for or how they determined if you met the criteria, but they just tell you that you did. So these qualified students might receive this direct admissions offered through the mail. They might get an email that say, hey, we've seen your GPA. Oftentimes it can be through like signing up for the College Board, AP, SAT, ACT, and so the student has shared that GPA through that kind of thing, and so the colleges buy these lists, and they see that that's the student's GPA, and so they'll send them an email and say, hey, we'd like to offer you direct admission. Or one of the biggest ways now is through Common App, which I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. This has been around for a few years, but when it first came out, there were some like separate platforms that were really confusing. And there's another profile for a student to fill out, and another thing for counselors and teachers to go in. And so it was kind of like, well, we don't know where this is going. But now that it's on Common App, it's really, really simple, as I'll show you in a second. The key thing, though, is that the students are going to then review their offers, and then they need to decide whether to pursue them or not. So just because a college offers them direct admission doesn't tie them to anything, hold them to anything. They can completely ignore it. This is an important part that I'll say a few times. The students should then research and decide if this is a place that they want to pursue. It was still about a good fit, right? So if they do the research, they look into the school, and they say, oh, I do want to have that as an official option, they do need to apply still. So the students still need to submit an application. The big difference here is that it's usually pretty simplified. No essays still, no letters of rec, typically no fee. They just fill out some other key information like when do they want to start and what's their major and all that sort of thing. And then when it's officially submitted, then they can get, an official offer of admission and move forward with the financial aid process and kind of all that. So again, just because they're offered this direct admission does not mean that they're held to it, and so on and so forth. So let me show you what it looks like really quickly when you log into Common App. Okay, so if a student logs in, hopefully everyone can see this. If not, please let me know if you can't see my Common App screen. So I have a fake Common App account. And when I first log in, I've already filled out the Common App part with my name and my demographics, my high school, my grades, my GPA, all these different things. Okay, so I obviously have I put a high GPA in here. But when I do this and I go onto my dashboard, the first thing I see when I log in is all of these schools, and Common App has 117 current schools that do this. I can see, I haven't counted all of these, but these are all schools that have offered this fake student direct admission. So some of them you might have heard of course, Eastern, Elmhurst, that are close by, our state schools. We'll talk about our state schools, but some are private, like Illinois Institute of Technology, Monmouth, Millikan, St. Norbert, public and private schools from all around the country have offered me admission. And so if I want to apply to Eastern Illinois, I can click on it. It will tell me that I'm eligible for direct admission. I can add it to my colleges, which is where I actually am going to fill out the rest of the application and submit it and go from there. And so it's really great that the schools have some added information on here about what this means. They'll verify you meet it. Here's the stuff that they're waiving. They're waiving the fee, the essay, the recommendation, teacher letters, other stuff. They already tell you about a scholarship that you'll get. They're gonna, just because they've offered you, again, they do have to verify. So again, the student does have to submit the application, probably the transcript, so that they can verify the GPA you put in is correct, and then go from there. So with the Common App now, overall having over 1,000 schools, the pretty much over half or the majority of four-year schools on here, there's a good chance, this is a great place. If you just do one place to do this, this is one place to do it. So that's how it looks again on the Common App side. So if you have a senior and they haven't applied yet or haven't filled out a Common App yet, they're kind of planning Harper only maybe, and they want to see, hey, are there any four-year schools that might be a possibility? They can create a Common App account and do this. Juniors and below, you can create a Common App account and put in this general information and kind of see what pops up from now. But just to warn you that on August 1st, the Common App rolls over to the next year. So for current juniors, it'll roll over for them. And it's something that I'm going to suggest juniors do this summer, is create their Common App and do the basics. But then when it rolls over August 1st, some of these criteria or colleges or requirements could change. And so at this point, I wouldn't hold anything as, for sure. Don't upload any documents because it'll all be lost, all that kind of stuff. Don't request teacher letters of rec if you're not a senior. Like, none of that stuff should be done just yet. But you can do it, the basic shell of the Common App tab, and see, so far maybe what options might be out there. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you can all still see my slides again. So that's how it looks in Common App. So who isn't doing this, right? Most colleges aren't. Like I said, over 1,000 colleges on Common App, but only 117 currently are doing the direct admission on Common App. Who's not doing this is the highly selective school. So I got a message here in the chat, are schools, who are looking for the highest GPA and test scores doing direct admission. Actually, I would say it's the opposite. It's not those super selective schools. And this is where I want to make a good point. there's a lot of talk that college is impossible to get into these days and it's harder than ever. And what it is, if it's only if you say specific schools. If it's the top 100 most selective schools or most popular schools, those are like U of I, like Northwestern, like the Ivy Leagues, those are getting harder and harder to get into. But college overall, uh, college overall is not necessarily getting harder to get into. And again, there are schools that are begging students, hey, we want to admit you, please come here. And so if we can expand, and our students and parents, all of you can expand your list of possible schools that you'd be willing to consider, you'll find that there are lots of schools that are not. And again, the majority of schools admit the majority of people. So again, it's not those highly selective schools, those most prestigious schools, those schools that do the holistic review, that are looking at all that stuff, are not going to offer direct admission. It's going to be schools that, that go by more just basic standard data. So this is who's not doing it. So who is doing it, again, on the flip side, is schools that typically do rolling admissions, meaning once you submit the application, they'll let you know. You don't have to wait for a specific date, or they don't, review all the applications in a batch and then say who's coming out. It's, you met our criteria, you're in, and then they roll out those decisions as they go. In Illinois, this is new. It's called oneclickadmit.org. This is a partnership with the state and Common App. You can see as of January, the participating schools. Again, U of I, Urbana, none of the Illinois system schools, Chicago or Springfield, are currently on here. But you can see these public schools are on here. So it's most of the public colleges in Illinois, but it's not the selective or flagship schools. And it's also a lot of, besides the public schools, it's a lot of, as we looked at some of the less selective, smaller private schools, the Elmhursts and the St. Norberts and those kind of schools. So again, all students in Illinois need to do for the public schools for this one-click admit is to create the Common App, put their address as Illinois, put in their GPA, and that's basically it. And then these schools, if they meet that criteria, whatever these schools' criteria are, and again, they may be public, it may be not, they will tell them, that they can get in. So again, just like I said before, it removes the fees, essays, letters of rec, it expedites the process, it ensures students who meet eligibility can attend a public school in Illinois, which typically could be cheaper depending on the school and what other schools you're looking at. But in theory, our state public schools, especially the non-flagship schools, should be more affordable, especially if there's scholarships, connected. And then I would say on the other side too, if your student submits, puts their GPA in and no schools are popping up, that could be a real red flag. Like, maybe I'm not four-year college ready. Maybe I should take a look at community colleges to reset. I see a lot every year, students with barely over a 2.0 trying to apply to, those selective schools or even not as selective schools, and they're getting lots of denies. And it's like, or they're getting in barely, but no scholarships. Maybe this could be a good check. Like, even these direct guaranteed programs aren't popping up for me. Maybe I need to go to community college, reset my academic profile, and try again as a transfer student in a year or two. All right. So does this sound too good to be true? Is this still an April Fool's joke? No. Like, what question should students be asking? Students should be asking a few things. Number one, if they receive this direct admit, does it guarantee me entry into their desired major? That could be a college-to-college basis, right? So, like I said, just because I get into Eastern, am I in nursing? Am I in business? Am I in whatever? Like, that's a question you're going to want to ask. Does it offer guaranteed? Does it offer any financial aid or scholarships? We saw on that kind of homepage for Eastern and Common App, there is a scholarship involved, but is there any downsides to applying this way? Am I missing out on scholarships? They're still going to take any money related to FAFSA if you're need-based, for sure. But is there a reason why I wouldn't do this, or why I would, is there some other questions that I should answer that maybe aren't required for the general direct admission option that I'm going to want to answer? Are there essays I'm going to want to submit so that I'm eligible for certain majors or certain scholarships? So those are questions that you're really going to want to either read the fine print or talk to the admissions rep. And again, is this college a good fit for me? So just because they're offering this, I really still need to look through it and see, do all the 5 Ps match up? Am I going to be a successful person? Is this the environment I want to be in? The students I'm going to be around? Where's the school located? What is the size, the setting, public, private? Does it have the major I want? And can I afford it? Still, those are all the quick rundown of those 5 Ps that students really want to ask themselves. So who should consider this? I kind of mentioned it, but again, students that are open to exploring non-selective, non-flagship, non-prestigious colleges. They're looking for an opportunity to attend a 4-year school where it's not so competitive, where they don't have to go through, all the hoops of the really selective and holistic review schools that maybe want to have a chance to be a leader, to have research opportunities that maybe would be tough at some of these bigger or more selective schools. Students who maybe have strong GPAs and transcripts for sure, but maybe are lacking in some other areas of a holistic review. Maybe they have a low test score. Maybe they're just not a strong essay writer. They didn't get involved a lot. They realized late in the game, I should have been involved all this time. I have good grades, but, and so maybe that's hurting them in a holistic review. But at these schools, they're just really looking at the GPA. Students who, again, think, I did really poorly in high school. I'm just going to go to Harper. No 4-year schools will take me. You never know. Maybe they will. So, they can give it a shot and see what schools are offering them admission from now. And again, like I said, if none are still, then that might be a really good indicator that starting at a community college would be best. A lot of times when we talked with juniors a few weeks ago, we harped on, having a balanced list. If you're going to have some reach schools, okay, but have some safety schools and some likely safety schools. If your students are having a hard time finding schools that are safety schools or likely schools, this again could be a great way to basically tell you, hey, you're pretty much admitted. Okay, great, that's a safety school. And then again, just no matter what, it's got to be a good fit. So to quickly recap, direct admissions is a growing trend in the college world where the college offers admission to students based on basic factors like GPA, possibly test scores, residency. Students that are interested in that college still need to submit an application, but it's usually quicker and free to apply. Students should make sure the college is a good fit for them before finalizing the application process. And of course, before deciding to go there, they should still visit and all that. Again, and make sure to read the fine print and ask about any exceptions to the rules. We have our college fair a week from today from 6 to 8 p.m. at Forest View. This could be a great opportunity to ask some of these questions to the reps that are there. If you happen to see them on a list, you can always Google or Chat GPT or who are some of these schools that do direct admit, or create a common app and see what comes up. And if those schools are at the fair, that could be a really great set of questions to ask those reps. How does your direct admissions work in terms of majors and costs and scholarships and so on? So yes, it was not an April Fool's joke. This is a thing. And if you have any other questions that I did not answer, please throw them in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, thank you for joining. And if you have questions, of course, about your students' individual plans, please feel free to reach out.